Hi everyone. So today I'm going to show you a quick tutorial, some more advice and some tips on how to EQ your mix to get it sounding at its maximum potential and sounding, professional. But before I start quickly, I've uploaded a poll on my Facebook page where you can go and have your say as to what sounds you want on my refill pack, which will be coming out at the start of May. So there's some people have added their own polls. You can vote for them there. You can add your own poll. It's completely up to you. So I'll leave the link in the description below if you don't already know what it is. Yeah, so we'll just get started with this. What I've done is I've made just a quick kind of 4-bar loop with some drums, a bass line, a couple of leads and some effects and stuff like that. It's nothing special, but I just want to get across to you how important it is to EQ your mix and spend a lot of time EQing your instruments and tracks. So, what I've done is I've copied this or saved as exactly the same project file, but what I've done in this second one is I've bypassed every single every single EQ on each of the individual channels, so you can hear the difference between what EQing the track actually does. So I'll start off by playing. This is the mix which has been EQ'd. So everything's sounding quite clean and crisp there. Everything has its own space in the frequency spectrum. And then this is with every single channel's EQs being bypassed, and you should be able to notice the difference if you've got good speakers. Now the first point I'm going to pick up on is, you probably noticed with that second one, all the drum sounds were still sounding quite clear, loud and crisp, and that's basically because they've been recorded in the samples that I've been using have been recorded in professional studios, and quite a lot of the time they compress and they add their own EQ to the actual samples, so they actually sound good as soon as you put them in a sampler. So, and you'll notice that the synth sounds in there and the other elements of the loop are quite low in the mix. Some of them are sounding muddy. You're not really getting that clarity, but that's the reason why the samples are sounding a lot clearer and better. It's kind of key that you get your drum sound sounding right from the off, because if you've got a good drum sound, then you're kind of sorted. It's a good platform to build on. So I'll just recommend a couple of sample packs that I use for my drum sounds. I use Vengeance Club Essentials Free quite a lot, and I also use Thomas Penton Essential Drums and Percussion Sounds, which are two really good sample packs. They've got heaps and heaps and heaps of samples, which are really clean, and you get a lot of different sounds from them. So, spend a lot of time actually picking your drum sounds, because if you don't get that right, then it's going to affect the mix quite drastically. And as I said before, there's the EQing that I've done on the actual drums is not really, well, I've not really touched them that much. It's more kind of putting reverbs on, compression. If I just show you here, see for the ride, all I've done here is just cut away some of this high end, just so it sits better in the mix. I'm not going to go through every single channel here because it will take ages, and if you've seen that other video that I uploaded before, which is the same tutorial, but it turned out that half the sound was missing and I went on for 20 minutes. So this is a shortened version of this. I'm not sure if the length of the video was the reason for the sound being cut off for half of it. So ignore that video before if you saw it, and this is the tutorial. So yeah, so I left everything else as is and just cut away some of the high frequencies just to give some room to some of the other elements of it. And again, with the clap, what I've done is I've taken away the low frequencies and the low mids and boosted slightly at the high mids. Took away the low mids basically because there's no low. I didn't want the low frequencies of the clap in there. I wanted a nice crisp high end sound, and this is a kind of technique I use quite a lot for the higher kind of sounds. It can apply to synths or anything, any sample you're using. You generally especially things like claps and hi-hats and stuff, you don't really need the low end at all. You might not notice the audible difference completely, but if you do take out the low end, it does free up the low end for things like your bass and other elements, your kick drum and stuff like that. So that's something to think about when you're picking your samples. It's also quite the same as using low end sounds like your kick drum and stuff. You're not going to need a lot of high end in there. You might want a bit of snap round about, the 1K to 5K. But apart from that, it's mainly all the energy is going to be concentrated down in the low end of the spectrum. So these are the things you kind of want to be thinking about when you're mixing your tracks. And if you do follow these tips and advice, hopefully it will help your mixes sound a lot better and clearer, and clarity is what you're looking for, really. So start off by getting your drum sounding as good as they can, because once you've got a solid drum sound, you're sorted. The rest of the mix is, it's going to fall into place. And I'll just show you with the synths that you've created, or from packs or whatever, refills, whatever you're using. They kind of require a bit more EQ, because, as I said, the samples they've been EQ'd in the studio, they've been recorded in a certain way, so they sound good, from the off. But with synths, you're kind of having to create that frequency characteristic. So here's the bass. I'll just show you quickly what it sounds like with no EQ on. I'll turn off this. So that's everything, all the EQs off, and the bass soloed. See, it sounds quite flat. And then if I just add in these equalisers, it's sounding a lot more. It's a lot more clarity. It's a lot crisper, and there's more bottom end, which a bass should have. So, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to EQ a bass. I mean, it just depends on the actual sound of the synthesizer. How you like the basses to sound. It's, everyone's different. But the way I done it, I added quite a lot of low ends here because it felt it needed a bit of low end. And for clarity, I've boosted the highs in the kind of high and mids quite a bit. I used the vocoder in the equalizer setting quite a lot. This adds a little bit more crispness. If I just bypass this, play it. Now you should notice that when it's put back on, you do get a bit more clarity. It's a bit crisper. And also, if you're using the Scream 4 distortion, on anything, it doesn't matter if it's a drum or a synthesizer or a sweep or whatever, try seeing how the cut affects the sound, because that can also be quite good. You get different sounds from all three of these different techniques of EQing. So the low cut, the cut on the Scream 4, the vocoder, and M-Class equalizer. Play about with them and see how they affect the sounds. And as you might notice, I'm using 2 M-Class equalizers. The reason for this is because they only have 2 parametric controls on the unit. So if you're wanting 2 parametric EQs, if you want more than 2 parametric EQs, then you kind of have to add another one. There's no problem doing this. So you get a bit more control. So yeah, so I've used the 2 on the first one to boost the low mids and the highs. And then on the second one I've used to cut away this kind of muddy bit here, and also to boost the kind of low end. So yeah, don't be scared to add more than 1 equalizer. You don't have to just use 1. I mean, I've got 4 on here really, with the vocoder and the cut on the Scream 4 as well. So that's something else to look at. And also, as I was saying before, you want everything to have its own space in the mix. So if I'll just go down and show you this lead, the way I've EQ'd it. Now remember, on the bass I had a lot of bass boosted and the kind of mids and highs boosted as well. So on here I've cut away the bass because it's a lead. I don't want to have the bass in there. I want the space for the bass to actually provide that. I've also cut away a bit of the mids and boosted kind of more in the the 600s to 1 kHz kind of range, so that the both instruments breathe when they're played together. Another tip is don't just EQ each individual channel as it's soloed. I always EQ, get a rough sound by EQing it while the track's soloed, and then put it back in the mix and see how it's sitting with the rest of the instruments and tracks, and then EQ and adjust the EQ from there, and you should be able to notice the difference when you're changing it. If if you've got too much highs, if you've got a bunch of instruments that have got a lot of kind of frequencies in the 5 kHz range, you might want to cut some of the instruments in that range and boost them, maybe the 1 kHz. It just depends, I can't tell you exactly how to do it because every mix sounds different and people like, different sounds. But hopefully that's a good tip for you guys to take away from this tutorial. What else is there to tell you? Yeah, I mean, EQing is very important. You heard the difference between this project file and the one where I bypassed all the EQ. It's very important for clarity and getting rid of the muddy frequencies. But it's very personal, and it's also very unique to each song and each different track. So yeah, spend a lot of time listening to the track soloed, and then playing it with the other instruments. Maybe even solo all the drums and see how the drums are playing off each other. Cut some frequencies in the hi-hats, or boost the highs in the hi-hats. Maybe cut away the low end, and see how everything sits together. And then maybe go into solo one track and maybe tweak the EQ, and then come back out, listen to it again in the mix. I hope this is making all of sense to you guys. I mean, it is a bit of trial and error, and it does take a while to tune your ear into this. But generally, bass instruments, they're going to want to have, low end space in the low end of the frequency spectrum for them to breathe. Whereas the more, pardon me, the more high end sounds like the hi hats and the ride and the claps are going to be sitting more in this kind of 2 kHz up region. So you maybe want to cut away the low end there and boost some of these frequencies. So it's all about finding the right balance, which is going to take time and practice. So don't be afraid to use more than one EQ. Try out the vocoder as an equalizer, and yeah, also if you're using a Scream 4 distortion, don't be scared to try the cut on there as well. Last thing I want to show you is I found a couple of quite useful diagrams. This is from Future Music magazine. I'll put the link to these in the description as well. So here you can see, I mean, it's got a key to tell you exactly what's going on, but you can see you've got pads sitting, in the kind of upper and mid range, and then you've got claps, which are sitting about 2 kHz where the snap is. Same with the crash. Snares a bit lower. Kicks, obviously the sub part is down, between 40 and 100 Hz, and you've also got the clicky parts, which could be anywhere between 1 kHz and 4 kHz. So just take a look at this diagram, and then apply this to your mix and try and play about with frequencies and see how they affect each individual track and the whole track as a whole. And this other chart kind of says what the 60 Hertz is the sub part, and if you have too much of this, it's going to make them muddy. So this is a good guide as well to say what frequencies, how they affect the listener. So too much high end is going to cause your ears fatigue. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's quite a hard topic to explain. It's more something you have to try yourself, but I hope the tips I gave you there will help you guys and kind of make you think about the actual sounds rather than just going in blind and boosting and cutting everywhere. Oh, and that's one more thing. You don't always have to boost in EQs. You can cut away frequencies, and it can be just as effective. You know, if you've got too much highs in your mix, maybe try and cut away some of the highs from the instruments and see how that lets the other tracks breathe a bit more. So that's about it, guys. Head over to my Facebook page if you want to vote for what synths you want in the refill pack. I've also got a new EP which will be coming out this month at some point. I've not got an actual date yet, but I'll keep you posted with that. And also keep suggesting more tutorials for next week. And remember, I'm not going to be doing any synth tutorials until this refill pack's out. So for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm just going to focus on other aspects of production rather than actual sound design. So yeah, keep commenting and asking questions, and I'll do my best to answer. So I'll see you next time, guys.